Some things never change, like the Minnesota Twins' ability, or lack thereof, to hit left-handed starting pitchers. Hello and welcome to the Twinkie Town Tavern, a Minnesota Twins podcast. I'm your host, Josh Kolojeski, and I'm going to be bringing you all the way through this series opener of Minnesota against Kansas City. The Minnesota Twins lose to the Kansas City Royals by the score of 3-1. Here's how it happened. Austin Martin started off his strong day with a leadoff single, but he was promptly erased on a Chris Bubic pickoff to ruin what could have been a rally. Into the second, Matt Wallner giveth, and Matt Wallner taketh. Wallner deposits a two-strike left-handed sweeper over the right field wall to give Minnesota a 1-0 lead in the top of the inning, but he lets a lazy fly ball fall a few feet in front of him to start the bottom of the frame. Have no fear, though, because Simeon Woods Richardson is here. Deep flyout, deeper flyout, and then a home run. A two-run home run on a slider in name only that was down in the zone. It's hit by Kyle Isbell, and it puts the Royals on top for good. SWR did settle in from there. He retires 9 of the last 11 hitters he faces. He leaves after 5 innings, limiting the damage to just 2 runs on 5 hits with a pair of strikeouts. Enter Cody Funderburk, which hasn't been the best, most needed words to hear by Minnesota Twins fans, and then exit baseball as Isaac Collins slams a solo shot in the 7th inning. Twins threatening in the 8th after Brooks Lee gets his first hit. Let's pinch hit Trevor Larnach again to ruin it all. Ground ball double play ends the frame. Ryan Jeffers' hard contact finally gets rewarded with a single in the 9th, but Matt Wallner grounds out to end the game. The Twins lose. They score 1 run on 3 hits in that 3-1 loss to the Royals. Minnesota now 1-3 through 4 games. They are tied with the White Sox for last place in the AL Central, and they are a game and a half out of first place. Let's talk about it, because there was a lot going on in this Twins loss to the Kansas City Royals. And I think one of the things that we mentioned right at the top of the show was another failure to hit against a good left-handed pitcher. Game 1 of the season against Trevor Rogers, the Twins only score 1 run. Now game 4 against Chris Bubic, the Twins only score 1 run. And that has been a problem even going back into the playoff years of Minnesota Twins baseball. The 2023 struggled to hit against left-handed pitchers. It is a problem that is not going away. A part of it is because there are so many left-handed hitters, left-handed corner outfielders, to be even more specific. We have a litany of those that we can, call upon at any time, except when there's a left-handed pitcher in the starting lineup, and then you have to go to some of your weaker right-handed hitters, because that has not been a priority for this team to bring in right-handed outfielders over the last couple of seasons, or at least right-handed outfielders that are good, acceptable options as hitters, not just fielders. Michael Taylor might have been probably the last guy, but even he wasn't like this otherworldly sort of hitter. But basically, the Twins at this point have failed to address that need and have continued to just load up on left-handed hitting corner outfielders. That goes back to even 2002, when the Minnesota Twins had Brian Buchanan, and they had Bobby Kelty, who was a switch hitter. They had Dustin Moore, who was a left-handed hitter. They had all of these guys. They had Jock Jones, who was a left-handed hitter. All of these corner outfielders that hit left-handed, and even back to 2002, the big narrative there was Minnesota can't hit left-handed pitching. That's why, one of the reasons why everyone thought they were going to lose to the Oakland Athletics in the ALDS was because of Barry Zito and Mark Mulder, 2 elite left-handed starting pitchers that would dominate Minnesota's lineup. That ended up, of course, not happening, and then we fast forward to 2026, and the same problems persist, just in much different forms. But a guy that did have success and maybe could start to right that ship just a little bit is one Austin Martin. Austin Martin, who was acquired by Minnesota back in 2021 when they traded Jose Barrios to Toronto. They get this solid hitting prospect who thought maybe the power would develop. It never has. He was an infielder at that point. He's now just an outfielder. He's going to be a contact guy. He's going to be your speed guy. And apparently he's going to be your right-handed hitter at the top of the lineup when you're going up against a left-handed starting pitcher. In both of the games that the Twins have gone up against a lefty starter, Austin Martin has been the guy in the leadoff spot, and he had an excellent game, all things considered. Probably the best game out of any player on the Minnesota Twins. Maybe Matt Wallner. He had his ups and downs, his peaks and valleys, but I think Austin Martin brought a very solid baseline for what this Twins offense could have done, and it gives you some hope maybe throughout the rest of the season that we won't be completely lackluster anytime we go up against a left-handed starting pitcher. That's because Austin Martin, in his first at-bat, gets to 3 balls. I think it was 3-2, fouled the pitch off, and then gets a pitch right in his wheelhouse and is able to line it for a base hit. And he gets on base. And what we saw in Austin Martin's first start of the season is when he got on first base with nobody in front of him, Grady Sizemore was going to send him, and he was going to try to steal a base. They tried to do that here. However, Kris Bubic, with an excellent pickoff move, holds his leg up for an extra second to kind of catch Austin Martin leaning. Austin Martin goes. Bubic fires back over to first. First baseman Pasquantino fires to Bobby Witt at shortstop, and they're able to get Austin Martin. Butterfly effect, that game could go completely differently had the circumstances been otherwise, but now it is 3 bad games in a row when it comes to base running after having some decent games, decent success on the base paths in the first 2 games of the season. So we're seeing the yin and the yang of the base path aggression that I think Grady Sizemore and Derek Shelton are both trying to bring to this team. And in this case, it ended up costing the Twins a chance to really ambush Kris Bubic in that first inning. I think the game can go a little bit differently if ended up walking later on in the inning. And then Ryan Jeffers made some solid contact. A lot of different things could happen if Austin Martin waits an extra beat and steals second at the right time against the left-handed starting pitcher, Bubic. But that's not what happened, and I think it's going to be us living in that kind of ups and downs of base running through most of the season this year. We've already seen 2 good base running games, and now the 3 bad ones. So the aggression costs him, but his day didn't end there. He made some good plays, some plays that you want to your left fielder. I shouldn't say they're good. They were about average left fielder plays, but he made the catches when they were hit his way. He obviously has more range than Matt Wallner, who we will talk about in a second, in his defensive, perhaps liability out there in the corners. But he got on base, Austin Martin did, in all 3 of his plate appearances. The single, which got to a 3-ball count, and then 2 walks, which obviously would have had to go through 3-ball counts. So he is working the count against starting pitchers, and at the very least, between him and Byron Buxton, 2 right-handed hitters at the top against these lefties, you're hoping that that can give you kind of a good baseline, or let your left-handed hitters kind of see a little bit more of Kris Bubic before they get up to the plate. And if you have Austin Martin taking all of those pitches and really being selective and still getting on base with that selectiveness, then you have a really good chance of those left-handed hitting guys increasing their chances at the plate because they're able to see more from Bubic and able to make Bubic work a little bit more, or whoever the left-hander is on the mound. So Austin Martin does exactly what you want your leadoff hitter to do, getting on base 3 times, setting the table 3 times. It was just the Minnesota Twins' failure to drive him in on any of those 3 instances. And then there comes a moment in the game that we talked about in the rundown. 8th inning, Brooks Lee, who we will also talk about very briefly later, but has just been completely lost at the plate, gets his first hit. I don't know if it was his first hit of the season. He might have had one in that second game. He didn't play in the third game. They went with Tristan Gray at shortstop, but he gets the start here in game 4. Struck out once, had a fly out, and then gets a seeing eye single that dribbles through the infield, and had the infield been positioned more naturally, perhaps it is probably a ground out, but as it was, he is able to get a single that dribbles through into the outfield and gets to first base. And Austin Martin is the next guy due up in the Minnesota Twins lineup. So you're thinking, okay, we can down 2 at this point. We can get Austin Martin, who's already been on base 3 times and has been hot so far to start this season. We can get him up. He can further set the table for the middle of our order. There's one out at this point with Byron Buxton and Luke Keeschel coming up after that. And we can really break through here against the Royals bullpen and then send it into the bottom of the 8th, bottom of the 9th, and let the fates that control our bullpen and the ups and downs of it and the topsy-turvy nature of it, we will let those fates decide what to do with us at that point. But we did not get to that point because Austin Martin did not get into the game. Austin Martin was pinch hit for, and where have we heard this one before earlier on in this season, for Trevor Larnach. Whereas it was Royce Lewis in game 1, in the final out of game 1 with the runner, the tying run, in scoring position. They decided to take the bat out of Royce Lewis's hands and give it to Trevor Larnach because of the lefty-righty matchup. At that time, I said that I would not have made that move, but it's probably the right baseball move. I don't think this was, I mean, it is the right baseball move in terms of the split matchup that you want. It was a right-hander on the mound, and Trevor Larnach is decent at hitting against right-handed pitchers. Meanwhile, Austin Martin would not have that same. I believe somebody posted that there was an 89 89 points of on-base percentage difference between what Austin Martin could bring you against a right-handed hitter and what Trevor Larnach can bring you against a left-handed hitter. But throw that out the window. Austin Martin was seeing the ball very well. He was being selective. He was making contact on pitches in the zone when they were there, and hard contact at that. And he had reached base in every single one of his plate appearances. I just think that you let him continue to stay hot. If it's another right-handed hitter that is coming up that is more replaceable in a sense, then yeah, let Trevor Larnach go up there and get his hacks. Let Larnach or Cody Clemens or one of your left-handed batters come up and make a play. But as Trevor Larnach did in the first game, ending the inning with the strikeout in the 9th and thus ending the game, he ends the inning with 1 out by grounding into a double play on the second pitch of the plate appearance, a pitch that was up in the zone, a pitch that he had no business swinging at, a pitch that Austin Martin would not have swung at. Trevor Larnach does. It saws him off, and it's a double play that ends any hope of a Twins rally in that inning. And it just kind of brings me to this question of what we are doing with Trevor Larnach. You've got, again, as we have mentioned, a plethora of left-handed hitting corner outfielders who all should give you a bit more of a ceiling than Trevor Larnach does. We've seen who Trevor Larnach is, and it's fine at times, but it's not anything that is extraordinary. We have Walker Jenkins and Emma Rodriguez waiting in AAA. And obviously, you're going to let those guys get some at-bats at AAA before bringing them up to the big leagues. But even then, you have Alan Rodin. You have James Outman that could, on the bench already, who's already on the active roster, that could be seeing more time there. That's a better fielder. That has a 20-plus home run season, has shown more at the major league level in about the same amount of time as Trevor Larnach, even if it seems like Outman, especially in the last couple of years, 2025 and 2024, hasn't been the same guy that he was in 2023. You can at least give him that opportunity to prove that. And we've seen that what Outman can be, at the very least, is better than anything that we've seen from Larnach, even at his highest heights. So I don't really know what Trevor Larnach is doing on this team. I don't know why he is so highly favored by not only our previous manager, but also this manager. I just think I don't want Trevor Larnach to be the guy taking the bat out of my young hitters' hands like Austin Martin and Royce Lewis. And if that means a move to eventually waive Larnach at some point, or see if there's any potential suitors for a trade, even if we're just getting cash considerations. I don't know if we need to have Trevor Larnach on this baseball team. I feel like his time has kind of run up, but for whatever reason, they offered him arbitration over this last offseason, and maybe I'll eat my words in a couple of days. Maybe in Tuesday's or Wednesday's game, rather, he'll have a huge game, and I can come back on the podcast and formally apologize for what I said about Trevor Larnach. But right now, based on what I've seen throughout the entirety of his career, he has not shown me that he can be a plus major league hitter. He can hit in the major leagues, which might be more than we can say for Brooks Lee, but he can't be a super dangerous hitter that I think we assumed he could when he was drafted in the first round a couple of years ago. And maybe it's that first round equity that makes you hesitant to move off of him. That, of course, would fall under the sunk cost fallacy, and you can get into all of those, logical fallacies with your philosophy professor, or with anyone who, philosophy major that's your best friend, perhaps. This is not the place to discuss. I'm not the expert in the sunk cost fallacy, but I know that would be an example of it if we are just keeping him on the roster because of his first round equity. Going on to another point from this game, it was Matt Wallner's adventurous day, and I think we're going to be saying that quite often, because he gets his home run against a left-handed pitcher, Wallner, who has traditionally not been good at all against lefties because he's a left-handed hitter, and it's against a breaking pitch at that. It is a sweeper that was in the same part of the zone that a sinker was from Bubic earlier on in that at-bat, and you think maybe, okay, Wallner saw the sinker, maybe he'll swing over the slider, maybe he'll be a little bit ahead of the slider because there's some velocity taken off of it. But no, he waits back on it on 2 strikes, mind you, in this at-bat. He had 2 strikes against him in this at-bat, and he just waits for the pitch to come to him and then smokes it into right field. 108.9 miles per hour off the bat, and it gives Minnesota a lead. And we talked about last week, first game of the season, Matt Wallner gets the start as the left-handed corner outfielder against the left-handed pitcher, and didn't get any hits, but took good at-bats in every single one of his plate appearances against Trevor Rogers, walking twice, working the count each time. It was really good. And now we're seeing not only is he being more selective when he's going up against a left-handed pitcher, but he's able to not swing and miss as much. He's able to make some contact, and whenever Matt Wallner makes contact, that's going to be a good thing because of the power that he brings. He swings with such aggressiveness and viciousness and strength that anytime that he makes contact, it has the chance to go into the seats. And per Baseball Savant, that would have been a home run in 30 of the 30 ballparks based on the exit velocity, launch angle, all of that good old stuff, the batted ball data. So, the plus on Wallner, hitting lefties early in the season, which could be a significant step forward from him being just another guy that has some power to being an actual power hitter, a feared hitter in this Twins lineup. However, the first rally for the Royals, their 2-run inning in the bottom of the second, was started because Simeon Woods Richardson, who is a fly ball pitcher, doesn't get a lot of groundouts. Mostly on contact, it is pop-ups and flyouts for those sorts of outs. Again, doesn't have a lot of swing and miss stuff either. So you're going to need some rangy guys out in the outfield when Simeon Woods Richardson is pitching because he gives up so many of those fly balls. And the first batter of the second inning puts one high up into the air, and it's kind of headed towards the line. And I'm not sure if because it was close to the line, Matt Wallner thought it was going to go foul, and maybe he kind of just let up on his run towards it in right field. But if that's not the case, then he just does not need to be in the outfield at all because that provides absolutely no range. He kind of just meanders over for it, lumbers over for it with the speed of a tortoise and gets there. I think Pat Williams would return a fumble touchdown 100 yards faster than Matt Wallner got from point A to point B to try and make that catch. That's how slow it seemed Matt Wallner was running out there. And it didn't look like it was for lack of effort. It looked like he was trying. He had long strides. He was, trying to move his feet fast. Until the end, it did seem like he maybe thought it was going foul, so just let it go. But it falls just a couple of feet in front of him. And that's a ball that should be caught 10 times out of 10 by your outfielders, unless they are as lumbering and slow as Matt Wallner. And if they are as lumbering and slow as Matt Wallner, then you need to keep them as a designated hitter. Because that fall into the ball falling harmlessly, for the Royals' sake, harmlessly in the outfield, in fair territory, by the way, got a single. And it was a leadoff single, but then Simeon Woods Richardson got 2 straight outs on the next 2 hitters. So if that is caught by Matt Wallner, as it should have been, it was not like a soft line drive or a bloop pop fly. It was in the air for a while. It hung up in the air for a while, and he just was not able to get there. I don't know how that happens. A professional athlete is not able to get that one. There was plenty of time for him, and there was plenty of time for most outfielders to get that. But because he didn't, instead of 3 outs and a 1-2-3 inning for SWR, and the Twins going into the third with a 1-0 lead, looking to build upon that, it's 2 outs, and Kyle Isbell comes up and, as we mentioned in the rundown, cranks the 2-run home run that ended up putting the Royals up for good. The Twins would not lead again in this game, and they would not tie the game again in this game. That was the deciding swing in that contest in the bottom of the second. And had Matt Wallner caught that ball, had he been able to catch up to it, then it's a completely different story, and maybe things go a little bit differently. As it were, he's out there defensively in the field, and we even mentioned it in the first series. It was kind of an adventure, the routes that he was taking to fly balls, but he was getting there in those instances. Here, though, it was just a lack of speed, a lack of athleticism that had him coming up short on this ball. And I think that means you need to use him a lot more at DH, especially at least, specifically when Simeon Woods Richardson is out there, because if there are fly ball pitchers with Matt Wallner out there, a lot more of those fly balls, I think, are going to be hits than it would be if James Outman, for example, was out there. And I would rather suffer Josh Bell at first base in those games and the defense that he could bring there, or maybe just give Josh Bell the day off. But I would rather suffer his defense at first base than I would rather suffer Matt Wallner's defense in the outfield, because I think that has a more negative impact on the Twins than Josh Bell's defense at first base. And, I mean, an Outman, Martin, Buxton outfield, while not perfect, would certainly provide a lot more range when Simeon Woods Richardson is out there, or any other fly ball pitcher that the Twins bring in. So I like that combination out there. I don't think we've seen Outman get a start yet this season, but him, Martin, and Buxton could be a decent, rangy outfield defense if you let Matt Wallner be a DH and then just focus on hitting. It seemed like he put a lot of focus in the offseason on hitting, and it's paid off for him. Now just give him even more time to hit the cages when the team's out in the field, and hit the pitch machine and crank up the velocity on the pitch machine so that he's catching up to these fastballs and then smoking them and not striking out at a 35 to 38% rate. Because he still is swinging and missing at a pretty heavy rate. In fact, a higher rate than his overall career, a 41% swing and miss rate so far this season. Granted, only 4 games. Then Ryan Jeffers, I would also like to talk about, because I liked what I saw from Ryan Jeffers. And I'm not like a huge Ryan Jeffers fan. I've kind of had a up and down relationship on my feelings for Ryan Jeffers. At times, I've thought he's a good catcher, and at times, like when he failed to put down a bunt in 2024 in a key game late in September, and instead ended up striking out in that plate appearance, or grounding out in that plate appearance. He wasn't able to put down the bunt the right way, and it kind of was the final nail in the coffin for that Minnesota Twins collapse in 2024. And so I have like players that I like regardless of logic at times, and players that I don't like regardless of logic at times, and Ryan Jeffers has kind of fallen into that latter bucket. But all that to say, I'm not just trying to be blindly optimistic when I say that he's smoking the ball off the bat right now. That he just is on fire when it comes to making contact. He's not swinging and missing. And he's not just pulling the ball. He's smoking the ball to the opposite field. He's smoking the ball to center field. He is smoking it to left field when he's pulling it. He is hitting the ball all around the ballpark. To what, though? A 182 batting average. It just has not paid off for him yet. But the numbers behind the numbers would point to, if it continues, some huge success for Ryan Jeffers at the plate this season. A 75% hard hit rate. That's completely unsustainable. That's not going to stay that way throughout the course of the season, but it's at least a good precursor for maybe some major offensive steps for Ryan Jeffers, who's already a good offensive catcher, or at least an above average offensive catcher. And then a 25% barrel rate. Again, probably not sustainable, but that's what he's doing right now, is he is getting a ton of hard hits, a ton of ball on the barrel. It just has not been to the right parts of the field, or he just is under it, or puts a little bit too much air under it so that it floats up enough for an outfielder to get under it and make the play. Those hard hits are, again, that rate is going to go down, but a lot more of those hard hits are going to start to fall for base hits, and with the way that he is taking the ball to all parts of the field, that means that there are less holes in his swing, that his swing plane is versatile. And because of that, I think that he is a dark horse to be the Minnesota Twins all-star representative this year if they only send one, and that he is the one that is the obligatory Minnesota Twins player that goes there. I think there is a chance that we see Ryan Jeffers in the all-star game this year if he continues to hit the snot out of the ball at the rate that he is doing right now. I am pleasantly surprised and pleasantly optimistic about the prospects for Ryan Jeffers throughout the rest of this season, because it's just been so good right now. It sounds different off of his bat. You know, all those cliches that you can use, the eye test, all of that, it just looks like he has a good feel up there at the plate. And that could just be a 4-game sample size, and we go into the rest of this Kansas City series and the next homestand against the Rays, and he looks like he did in prior years, which is a good offensive player, but not an elite offensive player. But if he can even get a percentage, a chunk of this hard hit rate that he has right now, it's going to be a good season for that Minnesota Twins catcher, Ryan Jeffers. Some quick notes before we do a quick preview of Wednesday's game. Brooks Lee, like I said, looks lost. Struck out today, swung over all sorts of pitches. Like, he just does not seem like he's seeing major league hitting well right now. Obviously, you don't want to give up on him because, again, the first round pick, and, you know, the sunk cost fallacy be damned. I think at the very least you need to give him some time at St. Paul at some point if this continues, because it has just been so weak at the plate right now. He is a non-factor at the plate. Weak contact when he makes contact, and he's hardly making contact at this point. So I think Brooks Lee might need a reset, because I think he can be a decent hitter. We saw it, especially in the last 2 months of the season last year. There were times when he was the best hitter on the team. And he's going to be our shortstop for most of the season, whether we like it or not. So let's give him a quick reset in St. Paul. Again, we'll see how the rest of this week plays out. Let's not just make that rash decision right now. But if it continues and he's not making any progress at all in his at-bats, which I really don't think he has so far through the first 4 games of the season, 3 of which he started and played, if that does not improve, I think he needs to be in St. Paul for a little bit, especially after Tristan Gray had a good first game of the season. Again, I don't expect that very often from Tristan Gray. I would probably, throughout the longer course, the long-term prospects of this team, I would have a lot more confidence in Brooks Lee than Tristan Gray overall. But for right now, you have a guy that can kind of hold you over if you do need to send Brooks Lee over to the Saints for couple of weeks so that he can get his bearings back. Also, Cody Funderburk is struggling early. He is now allowed runs in 2 of his 3 appearances this season, although I'm going to recuse myself from Cody Funderburk criticism. Here in Arizona, that's where Funderburk is from. I live in Arizona now. I'm from Minnesota originally, but I had a man come in to measure carpet in my room because we're replacing the carpet in one of my kids' rooms. And he was wearing a Twins shirt, and I said, "Oh wow, I'm a Twins fan. You don't see too many Twins fans down here in Arizona. What part of Minnesota are you from?" And he said, "Oh, I'm not from Minnesota. I'm a Twins fan because my best friend plays on the Minnesota Twins. My childhood best friend. We still keep in touch, and we're still best friends to this day. Even he didn't say all that, but that was kind of he said it was his best friend. He said it as if it was his current best friend. And I said, "Oh, who's your best friend?" Thinking maybe it would be like some minor league guy or some guy on the 40-man roster that hasn't come up yet. And he says, "Oh, it's Cody Funderburk." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's that's cool." And that was the end of the conversation. All that to say, I will recuse myself from Cody Funderburk criticism because my carpet guy is best friends with him. I've only seen this carpet guy a couple of times, but he's best friends with him, and I would like to keep the quality of my carpet on the up and up, and would like my carpet installed nicely whenever it is I need to call upon this gentleman's services. So, Cody Funderburk, hang in there. Eventually, you're going to start pitching like you did at the end of last season when it was like a 0.5 ERA through the last 2 months of the season or whatever. He was one of the bright spots post-trade deadline for this Minnesota Twins team. Simeon Woods-Richardson was fine. Taylor Rogers has looked good in his 2 appearances. So I'm not too concerned right now. Again, Woods-Richardson is never going to be a guy that has elite stuff, but his command continues to get better. It's still not at a place where you would like it to be ideally throughout the course of the season, but it's been like a long, sturdy climb to get that command to be solid, and he's not giving up a ton of hard contact. Meanwhile, the Twins did get a lot of hard contact against Chris Bubich. It wasn't just Ryan Jeffers, but still, we're not able to turn those hard contact hits into base hits. So that is what I have from this game. Again, Minnesota Twins lose 3-1 is your final score, and the Twins are now 1-3 on the year. They are off on Tuesday, and they will return to take on the Kansas City Royals at Kauffman Stadium for Game 2 of the series on Wednesday. That'll be Joe Ryan, and he will go up against Noah Cameron, who had a solid rookie season, a 2.99 ERA and 24 starts for the Royals. I think some of the stats on the edge there, the peripheral stats, would say that perhaps he's not a 2.99 pitcher, but he does have some good stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how Minnesota goes against him. And I will also be looking forward to seeing Joe Ryan once again after his very, very good scoreless first start where he only allowed 1 hit, because that was just a great thing to see. And his curveball was, as we talked about, working wonders. And I want to see if that curveball can continue to work wonders, and if this is something that we can start relying upon a lot throughout the course of the season, is not only Joe Ryan to be our ace, but to be like a legitimate ace if he has that curveball working all year long. That game will be on Wednesday night. We will be back tomorrow. I missed the chance to give some of my predictions, so I'm going to give some of my predictions for this 2026 season. I will give you the 27 that I had. It is a perfect game prediction coming up tomorrow on the Twinkie Town Tavern. Thanks for joining us. This has been a Minnesota Twins podcast. I am Josh Kolojeski, signing off and wishing you a good night.